The moon was asked, "What is your strongest desire?" It answered that the sun should vanish and should remain veiled forever behind the clouds. Impossible is what we want. On one hand, the mind wants immortality. On the other hand, it wants to avoid the timeless. On one hand, the mind wants all knowledge. On the other hand, it wants to avoid real knowing. The situation of the mind is like that of the moon, which wants to shine and shine brightly, but dislikes the sun. The moon was asked, "What is your strongest desire?" It answered that the sun should vanish and should remain veiled forever behind the clouds. There is nothing really that the moon, the mind, dislikes more than the sun. The moon is praised by poets and lovers. Gentleness of its light is greatly appreciated. People express gratitude to it for giving them at least some light in the thick of dark night. The moon receives these appreciations and thanks. What the poet forgets and the moon too forgets is that the light of the moon is not its own. You would have read and heard innumerable poets write and sing about the beauty and the romance of the moon. But few write of the sun. It requires a sage to worship the sun. But the moon is so commonly revered and loved. Not only do people forget, but even the moon would like to forget that it has no light, no energy, no brightness, no splendor of its own. All that it does is reflect. And even the reflection is enough to give light and calmness to people. The poet who is passionately praising the moon would mention nowhere in his poem that he is actually praising the sun. He would keep singing of the moon. Not even one line would be dedicated to the sun. It becomes easy and lucrative to forget the sun. The moon really cannot like the sun. The sun is self-sufficient and at the center, and the moon is just a satellite. Around the sun, there are so many moons, but all the moons are being fed by just one sun. would not matter to the sun if the moons vanish. But if the sun vanishes, the moons would be left with nothing at all. Obviously, in the eyes of the moon, it is an unequal situation and the moon cannot like it. What does the sun stand for? The sun stands for the self, for the truth, for Atman, the one source. Somebody was once asked how to live. Must have been a realized man. He was asked how to live, and he replied, live like a moon in the daytime. That was his answer. Live like a moon in the daytime. So reflect what little you receive, and you cannot receive the total being what you are. Retaining your limited size and boundaries, you cannot receive the totality of the sun. But whatever little you receive, reflect it as per your mortal situation. Reflect it. And even as you reflect it, remain immersed and inundated in light. In the daytime, the moon simply does not show up. Its individuality, its boundaries get blurred. Even if the moon is visible in the daytime, it is nowhere as singularly glorious as the moon of the night. It may be there in the sky, it may be reflecting light, but then there is light all around it. Now it has no reason to feel exclusive or special. It has known that yes, I do reflect light, but then so does the entire universe. In the night, it is easy to have misconceptions about yourself. In the night, it is easy to develop notions of exclusivity. In the night, it is easy to be misled that you are somebody special. In the day, the truth is shining. Not that you are shining any less. Not that the moon reflects any less. It receives no less and it reflects no less. But it just becomes apparent that all receives and all reflects, and that the moon, the planets, the stars, the asteroids, they all are bathing together in the same sunlight. That all the planets and all the moons and everything that fills up the interplanetary space is orbiting around the same sun. It becomes very apparent. That was what the wise man advised. He said, live in a way where you are able to see that firstly, your light is not your light. In the night, the moon is tempted to feel that its light is its own. The wise man said, live in a way where it becomes clear to you that your light is not your light. And secondly, your light is the same as the light pervading the universe. That you are part of one harmonious whole as far as this existence goes. The mind likes to believe that it has certain powers. It may be ready to somehow agree that those powers are limited. But what it would never agree to is that those powers are not its own. Those powers are just a gift from somewhere else. The mind feels proud of the intellect, of the memory, of the knowledge it has. The mind remains puffed up with its powers to comprehend, to analyze, to dissect, to conclude. And it thinks that it can even tear open into the mystery of being with its powers. The Khen Upanishad repeatedly asks, from where does all this come? From where does the mind originate? From where do the faculties come? From where do all the powers come? But it requires the sagacity of an Upanishadic sage to ask this question. It requires a seer to see that the truth is that which powers the eyes to see, but which the eyes themselves cannot see. That the ears are powered by some other source to hear. That the tongue is powered by some other source to speak. And that source is so vast, immense, beyond description, that the tongue cannot mention or capture that source in words. It powers the tongue to speak, but the tongue cannot speak of it. It powers the mind to think, but the mind cannot think of it. It requires the humility and wisdom of a sage to remember this. But the ordinary mind, the common mind, is just like the moon in our story. Its strongest desire is that the sun should vanish. It hates the sun. The sun reminds it of its littleness, of its incompetence. And it hates the sun because the sun makes it look so ordinary. And it hates the sun because for half the day the sun just makes it disappear. The moon does not like the sun. Man does not like truth. Mind does not like Atman. And that is supremely foolish. Because in disliking the truth, you are disliking your own roots. Moon's desire is a stupid desire. All desires are stupid desires. That is why I say that when you are to be punished, your desires will be granted. The moon says that its strongest desire is that the sun should vanish and should remain veiled forever behind the clouds. If moon's desire were to be granted, the moon itself would vanish. Can there be moon without the sun? That is how stupid all our desires are. We do not know what we really want. Yes, there is a longing, there is a craving deep within, but we do not know it. We have never really attended to it. We do not know what we really want. And instead, like blind men, we keep wanting miscellaneous things. We keep acting in directions opposite to that of our fulfillment. What does the moon want? What does the moon like? The moon likes light. The moon is in love with light. Because it is in love with light, it does not like the sun. Now, this is such a contradiction. This contradiction arises because of ego. Understand this. The moon is in love with light, but its own light. Not light itself. The moon definitely does love light, but the moon says light is good only as long as it is emanating from within my boundaries. The moon likes light, but likes its limitations even more. Not the infinitude of light, but the light that seems to emerge from within its being, from within its narrow boundaries. Now, the boundaries really are immaterial. The love of light is what really matters. No poet ever praised the boundaries of the moon. The poets have praised the light of the moon. Even the moon will not really be particular about its boundaries, but it is very, very particular about its light. That's what its life stuff is. Wisdom is to realize what is essential about you and what is it that limits you. And stupidity lies in conflating these two, not being able to distinguish between these two. Your boundaries do not define you. Your boundaries limit you. You are defined by your light. So, when it comes to choosing between your limits and your light, you must choose light. The moon is choosing limits. The moon is saying, let the sun vanish. Even if I too am plunged into darkness, it doesn't matter, but at least I would retain my individuality. This is the stupidity of all human desire. It says, let me have my separate existence, let my walls be protected, even if the one living inside those walls dies. Let my body be protected, even if the life inside the body has long gone. Let the material be protected, even if the spirit is no more with the material. That is materialism, the desire of the moon, the same desire that the moon has. Light is not really material. The boundaries are material, the boundaries are substance. And it becomes very easy for the ignorant mind to give weightage to gross material over subtle light. If the moon realizes that it is light that it is in love with, then its desire would take a different direction. Right now, the moon is identified with its boundaries. If the same moon realizes that it is light that defines it, not its boundaries, then the moon's desire would take a totally different direction. Not only a totally different direction, actually a different dimension. Then the moon would say that light is the highest of all. Light is my entire self-worth. Light is what I am. Let me merge and dissolve into that light. Let me surrender to that light, even if it means my own dissolution. I may remain no more, but light will remain, and that is not bad news at all. Let the moon merge into the sun. Let the moon be no more. Let there be only the sun. And if this is not possible, if I have to retain my moonness, if I have to retain a separate material existence, then let me live, as the wise man said, like the moon bathing in daylight. It would have been great could I merge directly into the sun. This is the desire of the wise man. He too desires, but he has only one desire. He realizes what his desires are really about. He realizes what his deepest craving is, and he says, why cater to miscellaneous desires? I will go to the root of all desires. I will go to the one thing that I really want. I will chase nothing except that one, and that one is light. I am thirsty only for that. Everything else that I ask for and demand and chase is just a poor reflection of the mother desire. Why ask for this and that? I do not really need this and that. I need only one, and I'll ask for that one. Can I merge in the sun? Please, can I be one with the sun? That is what my heart has been beating for so long. Can I be one with the sun? And if you say I cannot be one with the sun, then can I at least please see the glory and splendor of sun all around me all the time? Can you please give me a boon that I never forget that there is nothing but light, but sun? Can I remember always that every bit of energy around me comes from one single source? Can I remember and see that source always and everywhere? That is what a wise moon would ask for. It will not want exclusivity. It will not say that I should remain and sun should go. It realizes the stupidity and impossibility of such a desire. But wise moon, most of us are not. We are the common, popular moon. We are so stupid that we hate that which gives us truth. The moon says, my deepest desire is that the sun should vanish. Have you ever hated anybody more than the one who brings you to the truth? The Upanishads, we had just talked of the Kena Upanishad. The Upanishads begin with the Shanti part, an invocation of peace. And in many of the Upanishads, the Shanti part says, let the student and the teacher not hate each other. It is very, very likely that a relationship of dislike emerges between the teacher of the truth and the student. There is nobody more dislikable to the ego than the one who brings the ego, who pushes the ego towards dissolution, surrender, annihilation. The moon hates the sun. The mind hates its source, the truth. Not only can the moon's desire ever be granted, it is actually a suicidal desire. the desire would not be granted. But just having this desire is against life, is against the moon's own interests. Look at all your desires. I am inviting you, please look at all your desires. You will find the same moon-like stupidity there. The test is, do you want the one truth, or are you asking for anything else? Anything else. To ask for anything except the one is to act like the moon. I do not value the sun enough. Other things matter to me. The praise of the poets matters to me. The adulation of the stars matters to me. My reign over the night sky matters to me. My power and dominance matters to me. The sun and light do not matter to me. I am asking you to look at your desires. I am asking you to look at your values. What matters to you? If anything except the sun matters to you, I assure you that you will end up hating the sun. You are already hating the sun. To be in love with the sun is to forget everything else. To be in love with the truth is to forget everything else, because the truth is one and all encompassing. If you have fallen in love with the truth, how can you remember anything else? Because there is nothing else to remember. To fall in love with truth is to fall in love with wholeness. There is nothing else left. But we love all else. If I circulate a sheet here right now and ask you to write down what do you want, if I ask you to write down what are your desires and priorities, you would write innumerable things. But I would be surprised if I get to see even one mention of truth. You would say, what is important to me are my responsibilities. You would say that your family matters to you. You would say your business matters to you. You would say your reputation matters to you. And the sheet would return to me full of so many words, all words indicating your desires and priorities. But there would be one word missing in that sheet: truth. Have you ever met a man who wants the truth? Yes, people sometimes do say, tell me the truth. But what they mean by truth then is facts, not the non-dual one truth. They do not mean that. Even when we say that I want to know the truth, we reduce truth to the level of facts. Nobody really wants the truth. The truth is what we are. The truth is our foundation and our being. But nobody wants the truth. What we want is miscellaneous stuff. it is suicidal. It is stupid. Ask for that one. Ask for nothing else. And if that one is asked for, really asked for, you get it. It is such a magical thing. You keep asking for petty stuff. Do you ever get it? You have asked since years, since decades, since centuries, for all small and petty things. Have you ever been able to get it? You have asked for the love of man. You have asked for reputation. You have asked for satisfaction. Have you ever been able to get it? Love of man has kept you thirsty. Reputation has always proved insufficient. Money has never been enough. Now, for once, try something else. Leave all those little desires away and ask for the sun itself. Ask for the one. You will say, sir, when our little desires are never granted, how will this immense desire be granted? But I am assuring you, this magic happens. If your desires are little, they are never granted. They are never granted precisely because they are little, and existence does not value littleness. It values immensity. You ask for the petty and you will not get it. And you ask for infinity, it is yours. It is yours the moment you ask it. You keep asking for the petty for ages and you will return empty handed. And you will complain that it is a hostile world. You will complain that even small wishes cannot be granted. What you do not understand is that your wishes are not being granted precisely because they are small wishes. Now try. Have a little trust and try. Ask not for the petty but for infinity and see how easily available it is. You ask it and you get it. In fact, you get it before you ask for it, otherwise you cannot ask for it. How will you ask for infinity without being infinity itself? How will you ask for infinity without being inspired by infinity itself? Strange is this asking. You get it and only then you can ask for it. Such is the compassion of the giver. He gives first and after that you ask for it. And such is the worthlessness of all asking. You have already gotten it when you are asking for it. What is the point in asking? Such is the stupidity of all desire. What you are asking for is already yours. And asking for it again and again cannot help you. What has already been given to you cannot be given again. Have you not seen people praying, God give me strength? Now God wonders, He says, have I not already given it to you? How can I give it again? Or have I kept some part of it reserved, hidden with me, to be released only upon prayers? I have given the highest, the ultimate. I have already given everything that could be given. Now what are you praying for? What are you praying for? I do not wait for your applications to release your funds. I have already released everything. I am such a giver that I have already given myself to you. What more do you want, stupid moon? It is your incapacity to take. I have given all that could be given. It is your incapacity to take. And you have that incapacity because you have an identification with your boundaries. You take only as much as your boundaries permit. You do not take anything more than that. Do not ask that the giver should give you more. Ask that you may be able to receive more. And these are two entirely different desires. When you say, give me more, you want to preserve your boundaries. When you say, may I receive more, then you want to broaden and thereby dissolve your boundaries. These are two very, very different prayers. Never say, please give me more. He has already given the maximum that can be given. He is not a miser. He is not authoritarian.
So the words which you are using, like remember the one, right now I can make sense of it. It makes sense. But when I go home, the same statement becomes very dry. If I go home and remember, okay, remember the one, it does not mean the same thing as it means now. So is there any point in really remembering this sentence or writing it down?
Remembering and forgetting are meaningful words only with respect to the moon, not with respect to the sun. The moon must remember and the moon forgets. Right? We are talking of the mind. What is it that we are asking the mind to remember? We are asking that it must remember its essence. Now, what is it that is to be remembered? We are saying, remember your foundation and your being. That's what I said. Remember your foundation and your being. Now, is there anything apart from this? You have talked about the foundation and you have also talked about the structure. You have talked about the soul and you have talked about the body, the foundation and the being. We are saying remember it. But it is already there. It is not really to be remembered. It is already there. It is not really to be remembered. But then wise men have always talked of remembering, remembering, remembering. Surati. Why have they talked of it? And then what does constant remembrance mean? The mind as it is has the faculty of memory. Memory and knowledge that it acquires through senses. And it has intellect. Intellect that accords value and importance to the knowledge that has been acquired. And the mind looks outwards at objects. That is from where it gathers information, the appearance of objects, and then it has an intellect that accords importance to those impressions and appearances. It accords importance to those impressions and remembers them according to the importance granted to them. Your eyes look at something, we are talking of the mind. Your eyes look at something, the appearance comes to the mind, and then memory and intellect combine to give value and importance to that appearance. And if a high value is given, then you remember it. You say it is of critical importance. You remember it. When you remember that to which the intellect gives importance, that is when you forget that to which existence gives importance. When you remember that to which you give importance, then you forget that which is really important. When man-made values become important, then existential values are forgotten. It is not really a question of remembering the truth. It is really a question of not remembering the false. You remember the false all the time. Your senses keep on gathering appearances incessantly. Your senses are like wild creatures. You have no harmony with them. You have never made peace with them. They do not serve you at all. They punish you. And your intellect too is unrefined. All the wild material that your wild senses bring to you, your wild intellect attaches importance to it. So all this becomes important. When all this becomes important, then how will you remember the really important? You say you go home and forget. What do you mean by home? It is a physical location. You mean a collection of objects, right? Home is a collection of objects. Some things, some people, some memories. Why should that become important to your mind? Why? These are just appearances. How can I take them seriously? You see, take an example. We have been discussing, and the elderly gentleman had to move for some reason. And we have some veterans sitting here, and I could see how when the gentleman was moving across the room, your eyes were following him. Now you were remembering what? The object and its movement. Your eyes had become glued to the object. See how your eyes move. See how even when this session is going on, your eyes are so wild. And when you are looking at this and that, then it becomes important. And you remember all that. When you remember what is not important, that is called forgetting the important. Otherwise, the important is not an object to be remembered. It is your life breath. You do not need to remember it. It is the beating of your heart. You do not need to remember it. You do not need to remember it. People talk of remembering God. That is actually stupid. What do you mean by remembering God? One can only remember something that is separate from Him. There is no real need to remember God. God is your heartbeat. You don't need to remember Him. What you need is non-remembrance. What you need is forgetfulness towards the world. What you need is to ignore all this that happens around. Ignore all this not in the sense that it is not happening, but in the sense that it cannot be taken seriously, in the sense that it is not important. And remember, you just developed this habit, this ugly habit of giving importance to this, that, all the petty and immaterial stuff. It is just a bad habit that you developed. It is a conditioning. Since childhood, you have been told that this is important and that is important. And you were born with a body that was already conditioned to consider a few things, a few material things as important. Added to the conditioning of the body, there was the conditioning given by the family and society. The result is this perverted habit of considering everything as important. Look at how you read the newspaper. Look at how you watch the television. Whatever is coming to you, you keep absorbing it. You keep looking at it. You just don't get up and walk away. You allow the appearances to enter your mind. And not only do the appearances enter by themselves, the appearances enter with the message, with the code that we are important. Have you noticed this? Never does a news item just say that it is a news item. It also contains a justification as to why it is important. And you allow that item to enter you. You allow all the propaganda of this stupid world to enter you. And then that becomes important. What is spirituality? It would not be wrong to say that spirituality means a healthy indifference to the world. Remember, I am talking of a healthy indifference. Not to be touched, to remain uncorrupted. That is what is spirituality. That is what is the essence of wisdom. You may go home or go anywhere. As a human body, you have to be somewhere, right? Located in time and space. There would be the dance of appearances and objects all around you. Are you wise enough to know how important it is? No, you do not know that. So you give it extreme importance. You get excited by a 4% salary rise. You get excited if the Sensex takes a 300-point jump. You get excited if your marks increase by 2%. All these things become matters of life and death to you. You get unnerved if you hear that your daughter is going around with somebody. You become nervous if you hear that the neighbor is buying a bigger car. The servant brought grocery and you are now suspicious that there may be a fudging of 10 rupees and you take it so seriously. Have you ever seen people negotiating in the vegetable markets? That is the world. If you want to understand the world, go to a vegetable market and look at people negotiating. See how intensely and passionately they negotiate for 2.5 rupees. And these are well-to-do people, gentlemen and women coming from affluent families, reasonably well-to-do families. A car and a chauffeur might be waiting for them. And she wants to negotiate right up to the bone. Can you reduce the price by 3 more rupees? Instead of 33 rupees, may I just pay 30 rupees? Now look at her face at that moment when she is intensely negotiating that. Look at her face. What does she remember? She remembers only one thing: 3 rupees. Now when you remember these 3 rupees with such determination and passion, how will you remember the truth? The 3 rupees is all that matters to you right now. I have advised you earlier and I am advising you again. Whenever something becomes important to you, take it as a mantra. Whenever something becomes important to you, ask yourself, what am I forgetting? Anything, that something could be anything. Whenever you find yourself being too deeply engaged with anything, ask yourself, in being engaged with this, in remembering this, what am I forgetting? And you will find that the object of remembrance will be diverse. Sometimes you will be remembering money, sometimes reputation, sometimes future, sometimes security, sometimes attraction, attachment. You would be remembering 1,000 things, but there would be only one that you would be forgetting, the one. You remember 1,000 things, but whatever you remember makes you forget just one thing. The one, the one. That is what you forget. You might be watching TV in a very engrossed way. What are you forgetting? The one. You may be quarreling very intensely. What are you forgetting? The one. You may be deeply engaged in pleasures of the body. What are you forgetting at this instant? The one. You may be deeply overtaken by sorrow and suffering. You might be crying. You remember your sorrow, but what are you forgetting at this moment? The one. There are 1,000 objects, but all objects serve just one purpose. They make you forget the one. The one. Go home or go anywhere else. Objects will be there. Don't you have the wisdom to see that they are merely objects? There are walls, there are things, there are people, and there are ideas. These are objects. How can I be serious about them? How can I be serious about them? All right, as a body, I have to live amidst them. So I will maintain a particular level of dealing. But deeply within, it's only one that I will remember. Only one. On the surface, I might keep dealing with the world, but deep within, my heart beats in remembrance of just one. Just one. That's the way to live. That's the only way to live.